Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I'm so glad you're here. And you're wearing your Lucky Podcast socks.
I'm wearing my
Thank
Lucky
you for doing
Podcast
that.
socks. Yes.
So I'd like to ask you a question.
Ask away.
So most of us assume that if we put up a camera in our business, we're secure. But what if that is the most dangerous assumption we can make?
Interesting question. So today on Get to the Point, we're going to dig into FISEC, physical security.
Ooh, if I say you've been thinking about that.
I
for
know,
a
right?
while.
I've been wanting to use that all
You're
day long.
so
FISEC.
extra.
Sounds cool. And what is it? What is it really? And we'll dig in a little bit behind the scenes on what else is it besides just hanging up a camera.
And what impact it can have in communities as well.
And I love that.
Yeah.
This is Get to the Point. We're getting pretty good at that.
We're getting so good at that.
All right, welcome to the Get to the Point podcast, the podcast where we talk to real IT people about real IT stuff. And we dig into the why behind the tech that's just all around us, and we try to make it a little bit more human. I'm Andy Middlemiss.
And I'm Brandy Mentley. Joining us today is Aaron Zylla, Senior Physical Security Engineer here at High Point Networks. He's been here since 2017. Aaron designs and deploys video surveillance, access control, and wireless solutions, and brings systems thinking to connect and brings the systems, if I can read that correctly, thinking to connect physical security with the broader technology environment organizations rely on every day. Thank you for being here, Aaron. Tell me something good.
Well, thank you for having me. Something good. It's springtime in Colorado Springs. It's absolutely stunning. Bright, sunny skies, snow on the mountain. It can be 35 degrees in the morning and it'll hit 60, 70 in the midday. So you can have t-shirt and shorts all day. It's just gorgeous.
I love that. Before we get going here, I have a fun story to share about Aaron Zylla.
Oh, good. I can't wait.
So, do you remember way back when I saw you at a career fair at Dakota State University?
Ooh, that's a long
Myself
time ago.
and Joe Gallinanis went to a career fair. You came to our booth. You gave us your resume, and we came back and we started, people don't do this, but they do, put A, B, C, kind of like, hey, these are the interns we want to bring in. And you were one of those interns, and you got hired on, and obviously here we are today together. So I've known you a long time, and you're a wonderful person, and it has been an absolute joy watching you grow into the man that you are and into the position that you have here. I've just enjoyed watching you and your skills as you've, kind of become a leader in the physical security space. So I wanted to share that story just because I've known you for a long time.
That's pretty
kind of
great.
special to me.
And, I almost didn't make it because I missed the interview because I thought the interview was happening outside of town and it wasn't. And I had to call and fess up to it and be like, we need to reschedule. And so thank you for doing that because this almost wasn't.
I love it. I'm glad.
What grade did you write at the top of his paper, by the way?
He got an A.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Yeah, you got an A. Yeah.
I love that.
No, that is a true story.
Very good.
I don't get very many A's.
It's nice to sneak one in every now and then.
Exactly.
So let's dive into our topic for today: physical security, or FISEC, as I like to say. FISEC sounds.
You're going to use that the whole time.
enjoyed it.
I am
too much.
totally using that. There's just always a buzz today about cybersecurity
Absolutely.
and protecting ourselves in the cyberspace. And a lot of companies spend a lot of time and energy and money focusing on that. Kind of parallel to that, this whole concept of physical security. So, I think to Brandy's opening comment here, I think people think of that as a product or I'm going to hang a camera here and that's my physical security, my FISEC strategy. Sorry, can't.
Someone count the amount of times he's going to say
counters
that.
on the screen.
Yeah.
So just general commentary on, how do you get started with that? I mean, should you look at it as a set of products or solutions? What's the approach that a company should take when they start thinking about protecting themselves in the physical world.
Well, and you mentioned that cybersecurity component is really important and that companies spend a lot of money on that. And sometimes that FISEC area gets a little ignored. See, I used it.
Do not encourage this.
And this is what I learned at DSU back in the day is one of my professors said that physical access is total access. That if you have the best physical cybersecurity in the world, it doesn't matter if your doors aren't locked and somebody can walk in and be a bad actor in your environment. And so the first things that you need to think about is what are you wanting to protect? And those the three categories. You've got people, places, and things, right? Are you protecting your staff? Are you protecting your customers? Are you protecting your building from vandalism, robbery, theft? And then the things is your network infrastructure, your intellectual property, all of those categorize into those, what you're trying to protect. You need to identify what those are and then what those have those values to you. Obviously, staff is always the most important. Staff, customers, people. That people is always the most valuable. But then the property and things, you need to decide on what those are value to you and your organization.
Very cool.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah. So once you know, like, who needs protecting and why, tell me about what a real system looks like. Are there specific building blocks? Like, tell me where you start.
I mean, there's several building blocks to physical security, and then that brings you into like the 3Ds as they're called in the industry. It's detect, deny, or detect, delay, and deny. So you can once you identify your objects and what needs protecting, you can determine. Maybe the local police department has a response time of 3 minutes. So then your goal is to delay a bad actor for 3 minutes so that police can respond. Or there are some areas that you need to fully deny access to. And so you're talking levels and layers of security on top of each other. Obviously, you've got cameras. Cameras operate in that detect space. You can always detect. Cameras also help with your delay space as well, because a bad actor could see a camera and be delayed by that or have to think about it. When building on delay, you've got fences, you've got locked doors, you've got armed security, you've got all of those layers upon layers upon layers. And then that deny level is more authorized entry areas where you have manned guards holding doors, you have man traps, other ways you can configure your secure environment to deny access to those areas.
Interesting.
Wow. I just learned something.
Man traps. You said man trap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
man trap falls under the category of CPTED, which is it's criminal prevention through environmental design. And so you can, target, you got the big red balls at the front. Those are concrete balls. Those are there specifically to prevent somebody from ramming a vehicle through the front of their store. But they look cool.
Yeah. And you wouldn't have thought that, like when you were talking about delaying a criminal for 3 minutes, right? Like there's a lot of thought that goes into that. I love that first planning phase, or just, the deeper thought that goes into just slapping a lock on a door and calling it a day, right? Yeah. That is pretty cool. Is there lighting or anything like that can play a role into this? Any sort of automation? Just kind of in this ecosystem. Tell me how that plays into it.
And you'll see this at a lot of gas stations across the country now. They'll have automated lighting and sound systems attached to their cameras. So those are put more into the detection and delay. I've seen even a dumpster out back of a customer of ours where the camera detects somebody at 3 a.m. and, hey, you're being recorded and we will be calling the police, so you should stop dumping in our trash can, right? That's the implication. That helps delay those incidents from happening. You've got the automation levels where you can send out emails, you can do alerts. That automation is what allows the camera to send a message to your speaker system, allows the camera then to tell the lighting to turn on. That automation these days is the buzzword is a force multiplier, right? If you have got one security guard managing, an entire campus, that automation allows for more things to happen in the background on their own and not require a human element every day, every hour.
That is actually a beautiful segue, because I have this image in my mind. Back in the day, you have a big hotel or a big casino or a metro transit system, et cetera, and you've got a giant wall of displays and a whole bunch of people there watching things and taking notes and making calls, et cetera. And I imagine that has evolved a lot with the introduction of AI and automation, et cetera, where I don't have to have 35 people there watching a whole bunch of displays. I've probably got some interesting stuff happening in the background. Can you give us some examples of where you've seen that do some interesting things?
Absolutely. So that's called in the industry as a SOC, an SOC, a Security Operations Center. You can absolutely imagine video walls, NASA style almost. Think the Apollo movies, where you have a huge video wall, you have lots of staff managing it, but your camera views might be 6 inches wide by 6 inches and you're watching 300 feeds all at once. There is no way any human on the planet can do that. The automation allows us to set up thresholds and triggers and bring certain feeds live when there's an incident occurring in our view. And it allows you to get better granular details out of your system. We have a customer of ours, the city of Pueblo, has their real-time crime center. In their dispatch center, they have a video wall with all of these cameras across most of the city. And when calls come in, when incidents occur, we can see that live. And police and dispatch are able to respond to it very quickly because of this level of extra automation on top of all of the security equipment.
Wow. Yeah. So, we've all seen the crime shows, Aaron, where the police show up, whatever, a robbery might have occurred or something has occurred. The video cameras are all hanging up and they're like, well, they don't work or they're just for show. Honing in on the cameras specifically, they're more than just surveillance. And so, and I also think that there's this level, I looked this up, by the way, I had to, National Defense Authorization Act. Mm-hmm. And you know a lot about that. And so I want you to share that information with others. So cameras more than surveillance. And sometimes there is this kind of compliance aspect that people may not know about. Can you walk us through that?
You've got a lot to unpack on that one.
All right.
So the first thing I want to say is Hollywood, zoom and enhance, it's fake. I have been asked in my professional career to do zoom and enhance, and I had to explain to the customer that's not how cameras work. I can't do that. I'm sorry. The next point I want to bring up that you mentioned is cameras being just for show. You do want to be careful about that. There have been organizations sued for having fake cameras, because it gave the implication that they were tracking an area and it gave a false sense of security. Okay. So that is a thing you want to be careful about in your particular municipality. It is kind of state and local specific on that one, but just be aware of that. When it comes to the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, there is an act about critical infrastructure. So if you're a utilities organization, if you're critical infrastructure, any government agency, you're not allowed to have products manufactured in China because of the concerns with the Chinese military involvement. So the NDAA compliance is extremely important for any of those industries. We have ripped out a lot of Chinese cameras from water utilities, electric utilities. They have these cameras that they're just not allowed to have, and that affects their funding overall. It's an important thing to do just to make sure that you're compliant with your government regulations.
Interesting. I know in some cities there's a lot of kerfluffle. I like that word. Kerfluffle around, like the flock camera deployments. Is that related to that, or is that a different thing?
Flock cameras are they are a cloud-based LPR system, so license plate recognition. So they're solar, they're cell, and they're cloud, and they all go to the company Flock. They put their cameras up. It's a subscription model. They're very expensive. There's been some controversy over them with how they have their data and how they share it to particular agencies, and they've been known to advertise customer engagement without that customer being knowledgeable of it.
Interesting.
So there was some controversy there. A lot of other companies provide the same services. LPR cameras are extremely common. Genetec is one. Axis has their own LPR cameras, and they allow governments or organizations to track license plates coming and going in their facilities. On the government side, it allows you to use the criminal national databases for hot lists. So when that Amber Alert hits your cell phone, companies like Flock and Genetec, their cameras can be searched for those license plate hits and help law enforcement find those individuals related to that Amber Alert.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen just a couple of interesting cases where kind of the AI and the automation and all of the back-end stuff comes together too. Specific to the city of Pueblo, I know a couple of cases where they knew that someone that was on their watch list had entered town.
Yep.
Because they had vehicle description and a partial license plate. And they were able to figure out, hey, here's everywhere that car was seen.
Absolutely.
And they were able to track that person down and apprehend them very, very quickly. The other thing that they were working on was, I think it was the courthouse, where they have some detection that says, hey, alert someone in security if someone leaves a package behind, concerns about bomb threat or whatever, I suppose.
I mean, any number of threats on that.
Any number of threats.
And
things like that, interesting.
On those databases, when that Amber Alert hits, a lot of these systems are automated in the back end. And those municipalities will get an automated alert saying, hey, an Amber Alert was triggered and this plate was already seen in your area. So that level of automation really improves law enforcement response when there's critical incidents.
And coordination between departments,
absolutely,
between cities. And very interesting. The other thing I thought was really interesting, I think maybe the first time we saw some of this, I don't think it was very advanced at the time, was like the Boston Marathon thing, where they were able to piece together these people who were the bombers, I guess, and where were they and where were they going? It was a bit more of a manual process then, but that's like you can fully automate that now. Hey, there's a guy with a brown shirt and a yellow hat.
We're definitely moving that direction.
Going, right?
Just about every camera these days will have AI just at the base level in the camera. You can identify that color of clothing on an individual and then search the rest of your entire system for that.
Yeah,
I actually have some of these cameras in my house, and there was a hit and run just outside my house. And I have my system registered with the city, and I had an officer knock on my door and ask, hey, I'm looking for a yellow truck that's damaged. I was able to go back in the system and search for yellow truck in the past 7 days that drove past my house, and I gave him the footage. Here's every yellow vehicle that ran past my house in the last 7 days.
Wow.
And that took me maybe 15 minutes to do.
That is interesting.
I didn't have to sit there and watch every second of every clip.
That is so drill in on that for just a second. I think this is something that a lot of people aren't aware of, sort of this ability as a community to participate in, say, like a real-time crime center, et cetera, where you can say, hey, I have some cameras.
Oh, certainly.
I'll make that part of the network and part of the intelligence of what's going on. Talk a little bit about the Federation, I think they call that.
Most municipalities will have larger ones. I'm not sure, on any, if there's a threshold for what city gets something like a real-time crime center. But most cities will have some sort of community engagement program. The city of Pueblo is doing that with their population. And you can basically just sign up and saying, here's my name and number and address, and here's how many cameras I have outside my house, and that's it. Right. So the base level is I have cameras. And so if an incident happens around me, you can come knock on my door and I'll see what I have. For smaller business owners, there's that federation that you brought in. Depending on the system that your municipality is running, you could integrate some of your exterior cameras into the city's overall system. So there is a company we have downtown Pueblo that has a single camera outside their shop, and we brought that into Pueblo's Real-Time Crime Center. So if there's any incidents happening at that intersection, the police can bring that up live. But that's a whole process on the back end, making sure that all the paperwork is done correctly, making sure that the business owner is cool with it, the city is signing off on it, and then there's got to be like a proper demarcation point of like who's responsible for what on that hardware.
Interesting. Very cool. A lot going on there.
Yeah.
As you said, a lot to unpack.
Oh, there is so much. And even with the city hall, we have that weapons detection system, Evolve, and that can detect weapons coming and going into the property and can alert to dispatch as well. So you kind of alluded to that a little bit. That's just, again, those layers upon layers of security. So there's a guard there that can see that happening, but dispatch is alerted at the same time, and so that speeds up the response.
Yeah, interesting. So we've talked a bunch about cameras, the visual aspect, the stuff that happens behind the scenes. So let's switch to access control for a second. And I kind of think of this as, you show up at the nightclub at night and there's, they got the red velvet rope and there's a big scary looking guy with, I don't know why he's wearing sunglasses. It's nighttime, but he is. And, he's the access control guy. And, if Brandy shows up, she's probably going to get in because, she's Brandy. But they're not going to let me in if I'm not on the list. So you've got somebody there who's making decisions about, do you get into the club or not? I guess you could equate that to, can you access the building?
Yep.
But a real access control strategy goes way beyond that. Can you just talk about that? Maybe you got a bouncer following you around once you're in the club and go, nope, the VIP room, yep, not on the list. Nope, that's the kitchen, get going there, employees only.
Right.
Just lay us out a little bit of a broader plan besides just getting access to the building. What's a good strategy look like there?
And access control falls under the delay and deny aspects to physical security. And so you would have a user credential. It could be a badge, a cell phone, a QR code, or facial recognition if you want to get, scary Big Brother. And that allows you're granted access to certain areas. Like that bouncer's like, okay, yeah, you're allowed to be here. That can also be on a schedule. That same nightclub, you can't show up at 10 in the morning. Door's locked. You can't get in. There's nobody there to let you in. So your same thing on access control, you can be on schedules. And so certain staff don't need to be there during the day. So if you have janitorial staff, they don't need to be there during the working hours. So you can make sure that they're only allowed 5 to 11 p.m. or something like that. Janitorial don't need to get into IT closets. And so you're allowed to break all of those components up on where they're allowed to be. The detect part of access control is when you have door sensors. So a door gets opened. Maybe the door's open for too long. Somebody threw a shoe in the door to hold the door open. You can start getting alerts and automations, pull up a live camera feed and see why is that door open? What's going on? The detect part also, if the door's forced open. So if somebody breaks into the door, if somebody didn't scan their badge like they were supposed to, again, more automation and that detection to allow for quicker response times.
Wow, that's amazing.
A lot of stuff.
It is, and you had talked a little bit about, we tapped into some of the personal stories or just some of the impacts that it can have on a community. I know my really good friend, whom I love and adore, Mr. Anderson. He's not my friend. He's my fiance. Anyway.
He's your friend too. So, it depends on the day.
He is my BFF too. Yeah, he is. I just know the stories, like, they manage and own gas stations, right? His family. And so they have cameras. And there have been times where they have to go back to that footage. There was an incident actually outside of their gas station where a young girl was filling up with gas and a gentleman with a gun and another lady took her car, right? And so that footage is important in helping law enforcement. Which direction did they go? So I think people think, kind of this small, hey, not that it's small to think about protecting your organization, but there's like so many more layers of how it can affect a community. I know we've tapped on the real-time crime center stuff, but can you share some stories, just, how these affect communities, how they can help communities? Because I think those are important too. That these aren't just, equipment that we, hang up and hope that, it works. It can actually, communicate, or we can actually help, the community.
Well, absolutely. And this is the people part of the physical security. And, when I mentioned customers are extremely important. Customers are your community, right? They are both community and customers. And if an incident like that happens and you have no way to track what happened, to prove it happened, there's largely no recourse for a lot of people. You having that footage of that incident occurring allowed the police to identify the individuals, allowed them to identify the car, and actually gave them something to work off of. So many times, a lot of these, that's not a small incident, but small incidents can get completely overlooked because there's just not enough data to actually track down the bad actor. This is extremely important in a lot of these cases. I see it all the time with the city of Pueblo, the city of Colorado Springs. There's individuals affected by, petty crime that aren't being handled. There's a great incident in Pueblo itself where cameras that we had just installed were actually used to catch 2 felons. This is a combination, again, those layers of security.
Yep.
So the city has something called Shot Spotter. So all across the city, it can see where gunfire is happening off. It can identify down to about 3-foot radius, identify the caliber of the weapon and how many shots were shot off. Well, they were able to see that brand new cameras were just down the street from where the shots came out. So they were able to aim the camera in their direction, found 2 felons, drinking alcohol, smoking weed, shooting firearms into the sky out of their car parked on the street, and police were able to show up and apprehend them, and they found firearms with scratched off serial numbers, you name it. So just a week after we installed these cameras, that we were able to help the local law enforcement, apprehend these 2 guys.
Well, and keeping that community safer.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the thing too. I mean, we've talked about the why behind what we're doing here. And I think I shared my why about walking through the real-time crime center. It's just how it affects people, how it affects communities, and how it keeps you so much safer. Again, there's this illusion of safety. I get that. There's always going to be bad
Absolutely.
actors, whether it's cyber or, that's just the world we live in, right? But I just love those stories because I think, again, there's this cyber buzz and there should be, but there's a layer of, security than this physical aspect that has such a huge ripple effect. You love the ripple effect, has such a huge impact, on people. And I just think that's so special. It's just more than the technology. So,
And this is an interesting thing to keep in mind because cybersecurity and physical security are two sides of the same coin, just security in general. Cybersecurity is going to be like 80% crimes of motive and 20% crimes of opportunity. Physical security is like 80% crimes of opportunity and 20% crimes of motive. Because if somebody wants to break into your environment, they're going to figure it out.
Yep.
But so a lot of physical security is geared towards that criminal prevention through environmental design, trying to prevent that initial crime of opportunity.
Cool. Wow.
Very cool. I never thought about it that way, but that actually makes a lot of sense. Very cool. So we've talked about the visual aspect, the cameras. We've talked about detect, delay, deny,
Yes.
which I think is a cool concept. I
Nice work.
learned that today.
I learned that too.
I love that. We talked a little bit about the access control, the bouncer analogy, right, et cetera. So I want to go a little bit deeper into some of the things that people don't think about. They think about the cameras, they think about the door access. There's all kinds of other really interesting things. We've touched on some of it, right? The automation, the AI, the tracking of, a particular vehicle or a particular person, those kinds of things. But, and you alluded to a couple of things like, I think they call geofencing, where they're basically, from a visual standpoint, hey, this camera's focused on that area. Between these hours, there shouldn't be anybody in there, that type of thing, set up alerts. I've seen some like radar and motion detections, tied in where people should not be in, certain times of the day, infrared, temperatures, all kinds of beyond the expected. So give us some examples of some of the cool other tech that people are utilizing to enhance, again, another layer of security.
Well, certainly. Thermal cameras are a really cool one. I actually just did a design for a customer of ours. We're trying to monitor for fire, actually. There's a risk of fire in some of their facilities. And so we have a couple of these thermal cameras around the environment to track temperatures and send out those automated alerts. They're also extremely good at that physical perimeter defense because they don't need light. They can just see a human walking up to a fence line, and you can get those extra alerting, that early warning. The other interesting things is there's fence cut and climb detection. There's a technology that runs a wire along your fence line, and one section can cover like 1,000 feet of fence, and you're able to break that into 10 zones. And so you're able to tell your security system, hey, zone 3 is being fiddled with. Somebody's climbing it, maybe it's cut, or zones 3 through 1 all fell off. And then you can tell that fence is being cut and fiddled with, allow for that quicker response. There's microwave laser detection. You can set up. Yeah, this is some cool stuff I was looking at a conference a couple years ago, and I really want to play with it because it looks so cool. But you set up almost like a garage. You have those little lasers, the security safety lasers in your garage door, but industrial. And you can set that up in front of your fence line. And it's pretty nondescript, so it's kind of hard to detect. And that can alert you for people approaching your fence line. There's underground sensors that you can do. The amount of detection that you can implement is quite astounding. You can go kind of crazy with it.
Well, that brings us to our last kind of topic here of this all sounds great. We need to protect ourselves from a cyber aspect. We need to protect ourselves from a physical aspect. And it's that balance between chasing what's shiny and what's real, right? And so this sounds expensive to me. It just does. How does somebody, IT leaders, business owners, out there, I know you start with what do you want to protect and why, but how do you kind of put this into the budget cycle? How do you afford these types of protections, or make the decision. I know it's all about risk and evaluating your risk.
Benefit analysis.
Correct.
Absolutely.
And again, I know that there are some programs for, some of our state, local government, education potentially. And so not that I want you to go into the details of some of that additional funding, but can you talk a little bit about how you would guide somebody in, the fiscal journey of this and kind of layering that with some of the cyber, priorities that they have?
I mean, this is anecdotal even. I've had a customer tell me, why should I spend that amount of money on a camera when I can go to Costco for $200? And it's like, you get what you pay for. That $200 camera, I mean, that you don't know if that's compliant with your, regulations. A lot of those Costco cameras, I love Costco, love it, it's great. But not many of those are NDAA compliant because they are manufactured in China.
Sure.
The other funding opportunities, there are multitude of federal, local, state grants for municipalities, for businesses, for utility customers. Nonprofits have a whole process of grant writing applications. And then there's that cost benefit analysis. We have a customer of ours that put in like 90 something cameras specifically to avoid the risk of lawsuit. Because if one lawsuit happened, that would pay for all of the cameras.
Sure.
Straight
Yep.
up. So there's that, what are you protecting? What is it worth to you? And then do you have liability that you need to cover?
Yeah. Risk mitigation.
Sure.
Yep.
If you had to give somebody, here are some priorities that I would focus on first. Can you, like, from an organizational perspective, like we can't do everything. I can't do the cool lasers, right? Which does sound really cool, by the way. Anywhere that you think that they should start as far as like, here's some basics.
Cameras are always the start.
Okay.
Cameras allow you to at least track what's occurring.
Okay.
Have your record of history so that if an incident occurs, you know what happened. Right. That's always the start. Cameras. The next level is access control. Make sure you're tracking who's coming and going from your facility, visitor management, so that people aren't getting into areas they shouldn't be getting into. And those are always the two core pieces of physical security that help you get your feet off the ground. When you're doing your cameras, make sure that they have the capability to do automation. A lot of times those Costco cameras can't. They might be able to send you an email, and that's about it. They're not going to be able to do anything else. You're not going to integrate with other systems. You're not going to be able to expand upon those automations.
And do the cool stuff.
And do the cool stuff.
In FISEC.
FISEC.
You just couldn't help yourself.
I could not help.
Yep, that's
I
okay.
could not help
All right.
myself.
I'm feeding this. I'm sorry.
I know you are. You are definitely encouraging this. I'm out of, I'm not actually out of questions.
No, you're not out of questions. I mean, I'm out of questions, but we're not out of questions.
Aaron, we have a surprise for you.
Oh, gosh.
So this obscene bingo wheel in front of us, would you like to spin it?
Yes,
yeah. So
oh my God, that's fun.
We want our listeners to get to know you on a personal level. And so we are going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Well, actually, you're going to read a question.
Answer.
However accurate you want it, because you get to read it. So your choice.
You can read it.
You get to read it and answer it, and you get to choose whether we answer it too.
Ooh.
I'm
Okay.
going to trust but verify. I'm going to read it, so I'll make sure he's not just making something up. Okay. All right.
All right.
What we got?
I like the trust but verify.
We got our pink highlighter text.
See, it is creative. Yep.
If you were to be on any reality or game show, which would it be, and how well do you think you would do? I don't watch reality game shows.
Oh, okay.
I watched the Mr. Beast one.
Well, Mr. Beast comes up over and over here.
Every time, yeah.
Yeah.
Survivor?
Survivor season 50.
I have not watched a single episode of Survivor.
So you have not watched one game show in your entire life?
Except
Oh, I
for Mr.
suppose
Beast.
it says or game show. So
Okay, I'm like, hey,
like Wheel of
maybe
Fortune.
not reality. I get not everybody's into
Price is
reality
Right. I'm just going to say the Beast games because that's easy. And then I would probably get eliminated in like round 3.
Okay. All right. All right. And do you want us to answer or?
Yes.
Oh,
I want to
God.
hear Andy's answer first.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. I like that.
I'm curious.
That's true.
think
I would want to
I-
hear Andy's answer
I
first too.
think I would have to go with let's make a deal. Because they get to wear fun costumes and
That's true.
act like complete idiots, and that's right up my alley.
You know what's right up your alley? The Masked Singer.
Oh, that would be good
that
too.
would be-
yeah.
that is right up your alley.
I changed my answer. Master.
Yeah. All right. Okay. I like that.
All right, Brandy, your turn.
Okay. I've always loved, I have like a secret love for Family Feud. I don't know how
Okay,
well I would
okay,
do
that's
or
fun.
how well my family would do. I mean, probably have to be strategic about like who we pull into that, but I just love it. I think it's hilarious. And some of the answers, I'm like,
Oh, some of them are great.
whoa,
The
whoa,
clips.
grandma, did you just say that? But I love it. I have an obsession with it. So yeah.
Very cool.
Yep. All right. Well, you know, if you want to hear more from us, you got to hit the subscribe button. Follow us. Yeah, it is. I love that they moved it, by the way. Yes, follow us on social, hit up our website. And again, I said it in the last episode, but if you want to hear a specific topic related to IT or just really wanting to dig into the why around something that's going on, please drop us a comment or, you know, again, we've got forms on our website. You should have no problem getting a hold of us.
Follow us and subscribe. And thanks for being here with us today. Hope you have a great day. And remember, we're always here to help you get to the point. Thanks for
You do
being
that so well. You do that so well.